In 2017, the FBI received information about a comment made on a YouTube channel. The comment simply said, "I'm going to be a professional school shooter." No other information was included with that comment, which would indicate a time, location, or the true identity of the person who made the comment. The FBI conducted database reviews, checks, but was unable to further identify the person who actually made the comment.
That is the FBI agent in charge of South Florida earlier today. Now, Nikolas Cruz made his first court appearance this afternoon as he faces 17 first-degree murder charges. Now, we're also learning today that apparently he was a member of a white supremacist group and he participated in paramilitary drills with them. More and more of his classmates are also speaking out about their former classmate, and here is one such comment.
A lot of people were saying that it was going to be him, stuff like that. A lot of kids do jokes around like that, saying that he was the one that screwed up the school, but it turns out, you know, everyone predicted it. That's crazy.
Now, for his part, President Trump tweeted about the subject this morning, saying, quote, "So many signs that the Florida shooter was mentally disturbed. Neighbors and classmates knew he was a big problem. Must always report such instances to authorities again and again." And for more, let's bring in former FBI agent Brad Garrett. Brad, thank you for the time. Clear up for our audience, we obviously have learned that apparently the postings of the shooter at least were made aware to the FBI, but reportedly there wasn't enough to identify him specifically. What more can you shed light on that?
I think that sounds correct. We don't know exactly what the FBI did, but according to the special agent in charge of the Miami field office, he said this morning that they did have a screenshot of this post that was sent to them by a blogger, and they couldn't actually identify where the information came from. In other words, the identity of the person who wrote it. So that becomes a dilemma, particularly online, of figuring out where information actually originated, because you would need to know that to further investigate and obviously to pass it on to, let's say in this case, the Broward County Sheriff's Office to potentially keep track of somebody.
Profiles emerging of the shooter, including at least allegations he was part of a white nationalist group that even had paramilitary training in Tallahassee. How much are these groups on the FBI's radar, and how much of a significant threat, especially given the advent of Charlottesville, do they pose?
Well, I mean, these groups potentially can be a threat. They have every right to train, shoot, do whatever they want to do. However, if that's done in such a way that they're actually organized to go harm people, now that's a different story, of course. So, you know, I don't think we really know enough details about his involvement with this group. But I will suggest to you that based on what I know of how he was shooting yesterday, that he's had some training and that he's practiced a fair amount. And that quite possibly he has gotten that training from the group you just described.
I don't know if you got to see the clip, but I want to share my audience. Like yourself, Philip Med was a former FBI agent. He broke down last night, and I want to share that clip with our audience now.
I have 10 nieces and nephews. We're talking about bump stocks. We're talking about legislation. A child of God is dead. Cannot we acknowledge in this country that we cannot accept this? I can't do it, Wolf. I'm sorry. We can't do it.
Yeah.
Oops.
As a person who dedicated his professional career to stop these kind of atrocities, how frustrating and heartbreaking is it for you that, you know, really since Columbine, 19 years later, we've almost become inured to this, the frequency of these tragedies?
Yeah, that is true. And I guess the ability to actually stop them is just not there because it's complex. You know, we have gun rights, we have the ability to purchase weapons with basically 3 things that would keep you from doing that. And one of them is being adjudicated by a judge as mentally ill. There's so few people that ever reach that threshold. And so the weapons are one side of this. The other is you basically have to take information that's not a criminal violation and see if you can develop it into information that potentially could be a violation, or at the very least have enough information to go and confront the person and maybe find out what weapons they do have and what their intent in having those. I mean, why do you need an AR-15 maybe anywhere, but in particular in an urban environment? Granted, he has the right to have it. I'm not suggesting that, but why does he have it?
To that end, the president obviously addressed the nation, and he didn't mention the word guns once. And again, for somebody who's been involved in the investigation of these and the prosecutions of these cases, they're all different in different parts of the country, but usually they involve a troubled person with access and, unfortunately, intend to use horrific violence to cause carnage. Can we really address and try and stop these things if the word guns isn't even part of the conversation?
I don't think so. I mean, all we can do is make the schools more secure, make the information flow from students to faculty to law enforcement greater. But the idea that based on the general attitude of elected officials and to a certain extent of the population, nobody really wants to address the idea that assault weapons in particular should not be readily available, and clearly they are.
Finally, before I let you go, do you have any sense? I really thought things would change after Newtown. I'm not trying to get you to divine what Washington will or won't do, but do you have any sense that we're ever going to get any closer here to finally having the real necessary changes I think we all agree that we need to have, so we don't have to talk about these things seemingly every month?
You know, you might see more money for mental health treatment and mental health assessment. I would just be shocked if we see anything in reference to changing gun laws.
Unfortunately, I think you're right. Brad, thank you very much for the time. And on that note, when we come back, I'm going to bring in my panel and ask, what will it take? What will it take for Washington to finally do something, anything? Republicans say it's a mental health issue, guns not the issue, but the vast majority of Americans, they say no. We're going to show you the poll numbers. Overwhelmingly, people want universal background checks. Will we ever see common ground? That conversation straight ahead.